This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We have a very special show. In addition to yours truly, we're going to have Sheriff Joe Arpaio on. We just filed a lawsuit for him against the New York Times as part of our leftist media strike force. And we also have Jason Goodman of CrowdsourceTheTruth, who's gone through a lot of the documents that we obtained in a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit showing illegal grand jury leaks by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. And more on the way. The judge has ordered that all of the documents be produced by November 2nd. That's Judge Emmett Sullivan in Washington, D.C. But I want to talk first about our leftist media strike force. So we formed this group way back when it became apparent that the fake news media, the abhorrent leftist media, was attempting to destroy our duly elected president, Donald J. Trump. And not just President Trump, but anyone that supports him, conservatives, libertarians, people of faith, anyone, frankly, who is normal in this country, who is not part of what Hillary Clinton would call deplorables. We're not deplorable. She's the deplorable. We'll talk about that later in the show. So we have this leftist media strike force. It's part of our Justice League. It's part, obviously, of Freedom Watch. And this week, we filed a landmark lawsuit against the New York Times, the entity which says all the news that's fit to print. Their new motto should be all the fake news that's not fit to print. Because ironically, everybody reported this lawsuit, every major publication in the nation and most overseas, except for the New York Times. And why didn't the New York Times report this lawsuit? Because we're seeking over $147 million in damages for once they shut up. Because the charges are very strong. It's a defamation case primarily. And what happened was on August 29, 2018, you can go to our website and read the article written by Michelle Cotti, a vile, ultra-feminist, frankly leftist loser of the editorial page of the New York Times, just trashes Sheriff Joe Arpaio. His entire career is attempting to harm him and destroy his future prospects to run for the U.S. Senate or another public office. You know, the sheriff is in his 80s, but he's in great shape. He's like he's 65. He's got so much energy. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He's been called correctly America's sheriff, America's toughest sheriff. And he's taken hard stands like I have. And that's why we became friends. And that's why he's my client, because I admire people like that, whether it's Sheriff Joe Arpaio or Cliven Bundy or Ryan Bundy or Ammon Davey and Mel. These people stand up for our rights. They're not afraid. And of course, the left tries to destroy them, sometimes with the aid of the Obama Justice Department and sometimes with the inaction of our current Justice Department, run by the worthless Attorney General Jeff Sessions. So an article was written on that date, and here's the title of it. Well, at least Sheriff Joe isn't going to Congress. Arpaio's loss in Arizona Senate Republican primary is a fitting end to the public life of a truly sadistic man. Now, they try to couch this as an opinion piece, but it's not opinion. There's a lot of factual falsities in this piece, and it's done with malice. Sheriff Joe is a public figure, like I'm a public figure. But if you publish things with malice, with the intent to harm someone, if you're reckless in doing that, you will be held accountable by a jury of one's peers. Now, here's just one of the statements in this article. Indeed, many prisoners died in Mr. Arpaio's jail at an alarming clip. The number of inmates who hanged themselves in his facilities was far higher than in jails elsewhere in the country. More disturbing, nearly half of all inmate deaths on his watch were never explained. And then there's also another statement. He brought back chain gangs. He forced prisoners to wear pink underwear. He set up an outdoor tent city, which he once referred to as a concentration camp, to hold the overflow of prisoners. Inmates were beaten. See, here's the factual falsities. Fed rancid food. That's false. Denied medical care. That's false. This included pregnant women. That's false. And at least one case left battered on the floor to die. Michelle Cotti, C-O-T-T-I-E, check her out, is in a lot of trouble. And so is the New York Times. And it's time that we push back, because this granddaddy of the leftist media, this fake news, which President Trump calls a failing newspaper, our intention in getting these large damages is not to make money, but it's to bring the New York Times to its financial knees, to finally end it, to get rid of it, because it's the Pied Piper of all the other leftist hateful media, whether it's the Washington Post, whether it's the LA Times, whether it's the Huffington Post, whether it's Right Wing Watch, which is run by the atheist People for the American Way. That's a minor one. Whether it's CNN, MSNBC, they all follow the lead of the New York Times. And if we can take the New York Times out, then we will help to have destroyed the left. And that's our goal, to do it peacefully and legally, not to do it violently like they're trying to do with us today. They are in a revolution. They have ignited a civil war. People are being harassed. They're being assaulted. They're being battered. 2 senators, their lives were threatened just this week. The individual in New York City was arrested, funded by people like George Soros, who funds Black Lives Matter, who funds Antifa. The left is using whatever means they can, whether it's the media to try to enlist people into their fold, much like biting them on the neck like vampires, turning them into zombies, leftist zombies, to try to destroy the rest of us, or whether it's actually going out and harming people. The Republicans in Congress were shot up a few years ago. In Virginia, Steve Scalise, one of the congressmen, one of the majority whips, was almost killed. This is what we're dealing with. We are in a revolution, and Freedom Watch is trying to address it peacefully and legally. And that's why we have our citizens' grand juries. That's why we bring this lawsuit for Sheriff Arpaio. That's why we have lawsuits against the social media companies run by Bolshevik-style CEOs that are quite leftist. They're trillionaires, but they're trying to get their people elected so more favorable benefits, financial and otherwise, will be bestowed on their social media companies. They want to see this country turned into a socialist gulag, and they want to take control of it, and they want to enslave us. And that's what they're doing, and that's why they censor the content of conservatives. We haven't increased. In fact, we're decreasing with all the news that we make on YouTube, owned by Google, whether it's Facebook. We're discriminated against. We're not allowed to communicate with the masses. Only the left can communicate in a big way. Alex Jones has been removed from virtually every social media site. PayPal won't even take his contributions anymore. Other conservative media outlets are suffering, while this vile New York Times and its colleagues, to call them comrades, I call them, because they're communists, are trying to take over the country. And that's why we have our citizens' grand juries as well, because people need to be held accountable. Who's one of the accomplices? Special counsel Robert Mueller, a total establishment hack of both political parties, who's now under the wing of the Democrat Party. And this week, another grand jury leak occurred that he's writing a report, and it's going to come out shortly after the elections, because they're banking on the Democrats taking control of the House of Representatives. And what they hope is that this report of Mueller, it'll be a so-called impeachment report, will trigger impeachment of our president. And what will then happen? If and when he's impeached, and the likelihood is that's likely going to happen right now unless we take strong action, then he'll be tried in the U.S. Senate, as Clinton was, and our country will be ground to a halt. And that's why our citizens' grand juries are on the move. Watch what we do in November. I delayed the date a little bit because we got volunteers in Orange County. We needed to save costs, and we are pushing ahead because we have big ambitions. We're going to indict Mueller. We're going to indict his deputy, Wiseman. We're going to indict James Comey, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, McCabe, Rosenstein, and those who worked around him. They're our first targets. Then we'll get to the Clintons, we'll get to the Obamas, we'll get to the Soroses, and we'll get to the others who are destroying this country. So we're going to indict them, we're going to try them, we're going to sentence them, and then we're going to put the sentences on President Trump's desk, and we're going to ask him to enforce the sentences and to throw these people in prison. Hillary Clinton being one of the top targets, obviously. The vile Hillary Clinton, which even the left is trying to disown these days. She came out saying that her husband's sexual harassment of Monica Lewinsky was not abuse because it was the age of consent. She has now been shunned from the Democrat Party, but let's put her back. Let's put her away legally because her aides are coming out saying she's thinking of running for the presidency in 2020. Well, she can't run from the presidency in prison. That's where she belongs. And we need to set an example here that people like the Clintons will not walk off scot-free because you know what? I mean, there are a couple good Republicans in Congress like Mark Meadows, like a few others, but they're not the majority. They don't rule the school, and they're not even going to be in control probably after November 6th. There are investigations of the Republicans, which were for show and not for dough, which get them on Fox News, which get them reelected. They're going to go by the wayside if there's a Democrat majority. So we need to do it ourselves with our leftist media strike force, with our Justice League, with our citizens' grand juries, which are part of the Justice League. We are the superheroes. We are Batman. We are Superman. We are Wonder Woman. We are the Flash. We are Aquaman. We are Spider-Man. We are all of the people that had decided, whether it's in comic books or whether it's on TV, this is the reality today, is that we have to go outside of the establishment justice system. It doesn't work. It's dead. It doesn't work. And we, the American people, need to bring about justice ourselves, and we need to enforce that justice. And that's what we did in 1776 in waging a revolution and signing the Declaration of Independence first in my native city of Philadelphia. We can do this again. And Freedom Watch is your only hope. It's not my former group, which I founded, Judicial Watch. Okay, get documents, get yourself on TV, raise money.
Rep.
But what do? They do nothing. So Freedom Watch is your Justice Department. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute, join our Justice League. I'll be right back.
Dangerous.
You don't care. He uses the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Joining us now is Jason Goodman, my very good friend, the founder of CrowdsourceTheTruth, one of those media outlets that has been discriminated against by the social media companies, along with Freedom Watch and others. And he's a great hero because Jason tells it like it is. That's why his site is called CrowdsourceTheTruth, and I want you to go check it out. I'm on there frequently. He's on other sites as well. Jason's coming in because I gave him some of the documents that Mueller has produced showing his communications with the media, and I want him to tell us what he's found so far. And we have a big treasure trove that we're expecting on November 2nd because Judge Sullivan in Washington, D.C. has ordered that the FBI, the Justice Department, and, of course, its special counsel, Robert Mueller, cough them up by that date. So there's going to be more. But, Jason, tell us what you've found so far, because you're a very good investigative journalist and patriot.
Thank you, Larry. This is actually a really important project for CrowdsourceTheTruth because I didn't just come up with that name to be clever. I really wanted to engage the public and organizations like Freedom Watch and put together all the resources that we have because, something I've been learning, I was with you there when you presented your case to Judge Sullivan and got the ruling in your favor. And this is really bringing together so many elements because what seems quite obvious is that one of the techniques, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that lawyers like to use is to just baffle the opponent with sheer volume of information, making it super difficult to, go through there and find what you need to prosecute your case. And so what we did is we did a show on CrowdsourceTheTruth where we engaged our audience, our crowdsourced community, to go through this huge volume of emails where Peter Carr and Robert Mueller's special counsel office, he's the liaison between the special counsel's office and the press. He's communicating with people from The Guardian, AP, Reuters, The Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Washington Post, New York Times, Fox, all the different news outlets. And what we're finding is that there's almost more that we're learning from what's not here than from what's here. And, of course, Judge Sullivan agreed that this excuse they gave about their email migration, causing them to lose data, was not acceptable. And we're definitely looking forward to the information that we didn't see when you get this new release on November 2nd. But what we are seeing is a bunch of emails with certain reporters that correspond to stories coming out in the mainstream news. And it's very interesting to see where reporters' names have been redacted. For instance, August 25th, the Wall Street Journal had released a story written by Shane Harris, who seems to be really zeroing in on this death of Peter Smith. And Shane Harris has done a lot of inaccurate reporting on Peter Smith, to the extent that I wonder if it's not deliberate to try to direct the narrative. And then when we look at the emails between the Wall Street Journal and Peter Carr in the days leading up to that August 25th article, there is a journalist's name redacted from the emails. And in my conversations with you and Kevin Shipp and some of the other guests that we get on to Crowdsource the Truth, I've learned that it's actually illegal for the FBI or the CIA or any of our government agencies to redact information from a document that's not classified. So why are names of reporters from the Wall Street Journal being redacted? Why is Peter Carr sending so many text messages and email messages inviting his contacts in the press to meet him at coffee shops and restaurants where they can speak, off the record? He's clearly leaking grand jury information to these press outlets, but the question becomes, it's not just a matter of leaking, Larry. When we zoom out on all this information, we're starting to see a pattern of the special counsel's office utilizing the press and the press working hand in glove with the special counsel's office to achieve political goals.
Absolutely, Jason. And that's the problem here. And that's why we have our leftist media strike force. That's why we brought our cases against the social media companies, ultra-leftists, against the New York Times, ultra-leftists. There is a cabal, okay? And there is a conspiracy here among the left to not only take down President Trump, but to take down the conservative right, libertarians, people of faith, everybody like that. If you believe in God in this country to the left, that's an anathema to them, okay? In the Soviet Union, in China, you're not allowed to believe in God. They don't believe in God either. So even people of faith are being discriminated against. But I'm going to have you stay on in the next segment because I want you to hear what I have to say with Sheriff Arpaio and to weigh in, because this is a super important case that we brought against the New York Times. If we can take down the New York Times, we take down the Pied Piper of the leftist media. And I'll be right back with Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with my hero, my friend, my colleague, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, America's sheriff, America's toughest sheriff. Someone who, like yours truly, stood up and stands up for what they believe is right and is prepared to take the consequences, the vicious left, but to fight back. And just this week, we filed a lawsuit with the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia against the New York Times. And it's because of a defamatory article that I talked about in the lead into this show called, well, at least Sheriff Joe isn't going to Congress. Arpaio's loss in Arizona's Senate Republican primary is a fitting end to the public life of a truly sadistic man. And in this article, and I went through some of the factual falsities in that article that were done with malice, they're trying to destroy the sheriff. They're trying to take him out, take all of the supporters out. They're trying to destroy this conservative hero. And the sheriff put himself forward. He's the first person to do that, to really take on the New York Times. People complain, and our president complains as well. He's been hurt. We did this not just for the sheriff. We did it for the president. We did it for everyone that this vile publication tries to destroy, and in some instances has destroyed. But they're not going to destroy the sheriff. Okay, he's like the Energizer Bunny. He'll come back. He is back. And I want to introduce you to him. As you know, he's been on our show before. He's my friend. We're the ones who also killed the 5 million illegal amnesty of Obama. First, we got this Democrat judge in Washington, D.C. She wouldn't do anything. So we went to Texas and we worked with the 25 attorneys general and we got the amnesty thrown out. So I want to bring in Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Jason Goodman's still on the line. He's going to comment on a lot of the things that we talk about. And Sheriff, welcome the special prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Tell us about this lawsuit, because I've already teed it up, why you brought it, why it's so important, and why you continue to be out there representing the American people.
Well, thank you. And by the way, Larry, thank you for your courage taking on not just this matter, but other controversial matters that other people won't even touch. And I'm sure the president appreciates what you're doing. You mentioned your special prosecutor. You're a good one, because they just appointed a special prosecutor, the Ninth Circuit, to go after me on the pardon. And that's, you being a legal expert, will wonder what's going on, so I want to take that up to the Supreme Court. So that's another battle I'm facing. And as far as this lawsuit, as my attorney, that I have to be very careful in a way what I say, and I want to follow your advice too, and be careful. But I'm glad that you offer to take this on, and it's something that has to be done. And I've had an open door policy with the media for 30 years. Actually, even longer than that, when I was head of the Federal Drug Enforcement, I still talked to the media. I had to be more careful because I wouldn't want to be transferred if I said the wrong thing to the moon. But as being an elected official for 24 years, I could speak out, and I did. Now, I know, that I will take a lot of heat. In fact, it's starting already for filing this lawsuit. It's trying to tear me apart, but let them do it. It's worth it. The media, it's a love-hate relationship I've had, but we'll do what we have to do to set the example, and also to win the case. We're not doing this just to get our name in a paper. That's easy for you and I. So we're going to take it on. I'm very optimistic, and I think as the procedures continue, and you know what you're doing, we'll hear more about this New York Times and other fake media outlets.
We will do that, and our objective basically is to take the New York Times down to its knees, because we've asked for a lot of damage. It's not because we're looking for money. It's because we want to put a chink in the side of the New York Times, that they grow up, that they start to be responsible. But you know what? If we win, maybe we can even buy the New York Times. What should we name it? Let's think about a name. We can do a show just on naming the New York Times, because they're the Pied Piper of this vicious left-wing media. Okay, and if we can set an example with them, and you're the only one really to come forward and to take them on, people are scared of them because they're so powerful. And although the president calls them the failing New York Times, they still have enough money there to pay a very large damage award. But we need the support at Freedom Watch, so I hope people will go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to what is your defense, and also to understand that we, the American people, can do it for ourselves. We don't have to wait for our so-called Justice Department to take action, because they're inert, particularly under the current leadership here at the Justice Department, and we hope that the president will come up with more courageous leadership after the midterm elections. But you are the courageous leadership, Sheriff, And I want to get your take on what's been going on with this caravan from Central America, how the president's been dealing with it, how you see it, because you've got tremendous experience. Nobody else in this country has as much experience with illegal immigration as you do, and that's why you're loved in Arizona, despite some of the hateful press out there. And I've always said, and people have told me when I first started, you judge yourself by your enemies. If you have strong enemies, it means you're doing something important. So give us your take on this caravan from Central America and what we need to do.
Well, first of all, I was a director of the Federal Drug Enforcement in Mexico, South America, and Central America, and also in Turkey and the Middle East. That's another issue. But I did do an exclusive to friends of mine, in a way, Breitbart and another paper that came out yesterday on this issue that you told me, you just mentioned. I said when I ran for office for Senate, I said that we should send the military across the border and work in conjunction with the Mexican authorities to stop this problem before the drugs and the illegal immigrants cross into our country. And now I went one step further and said, let's send the military deep inside Mexico to help the Mexican government to stop these illegals from coming into their country from Central America. So when people say I'm nuts, well, I did this in the early 70s when I was head of the DEA. We used the military. In fact, they're using the military in Colombia, I believe, the U.S. military. So this isn't far out to send the military into foreign countries. We do that all over the world. Why can't we send a military in our bordering country? I can't figure that out, why the big issue. So you have to stop these people from before they enter the United States, and you have to do that with the help of the Mexicans to do it when they're coming into their country. Send a message out. The president is sending a message out. So let's see what happens. I think he'll be successful and pressure Mexico to do something about this problem. And we know
that this migration is being financed by some leftist financiers, very wealthy people. Wouldn't surprise me if George Soros wasn't behind it. We know how much money he put into your campaign for Senate in Arizona. Of course, there's a good chance you're going to run again in 2020 for McCain's seat or some other public office. You're not done yet. You're just starting, Sheriff. You're a young guy. And the reality here is that this is a concerted effort by the Democrats to flood this country with what they think are going to be their voters to take over this country at the ballot box, any illegal means that they can use. So tell us about what Soros did in your campaign.
Well, just briefly, what you just mentioned about the Democrats being involved. Now, I'm not going to compare them with the revolutions that went on when I was over there. They always had these, revolutions in these countries. I'm not going to compare it as a revolution going on. But here we have the Democrats that are happy that this is going on. Now, whether they're behind it or not, directly or indirectly, who knows? But why aren't they coming out and saying we have to do something, send the military, stop the illegal immigration? Why is it the Democrats?
Well, because they want those voters ultimately. That's why they want all the dreamers to be made American citizens. They think they're going to vote Democrat, and the president should not give in to that. That should not happen. They can stay here, but they should never be citizens. They should never be able to vote. Okay, stay here if, in fact, you can prove that you're worthy of staying here. Anyway, I want to get Jason's take on what's going on because he's a very astute analyst and commentator. Some of the things that you've heard that we've talked about with Sheriff Arpaio. Jason.
Well, Larry, I think all of these things are connected. I think that, Donald Trump really disrupted the criminal apple cart of the most sophisticated criminal cartel in human history. Charles Ortel and I have done over 100 two-hour programs revealing tons of evidence about the Clinton Foundation frauds, They have laundered billions of dollars and have been involved in everything from Uranium One. I mean, you can't name a scandal in the past 30 years that they weren't involved in. And now that Donald Trump is threatening to drain the swamp, he's exposing corruption in the Department of Justice. This is a life and death battle, deep state versus President Trump. So they're pulling out all the stops. Patriots like Sheriff Arpaio, who has been revealing these types of truths for many, many years, are coming under fire. And, back to your FOIA case against Mueller, we're just now in Donald Trump's presidency starting to see how the press attacks people like Sheriff Arpaio, people like Donald Trump with fake news, false stories. And they know that you put it out in something like the New York Times, CNN, the Wall Street Journal. Most people in America are conditioned to read that and think it's true. So they can just say whatever they want, and it's going to have a damaging effect on the sheriff, a damaging effect on the president. It's important that we expose that.
Well, it is very important, and that's why the sheriff's so important. And, some of my other clients, Cliven and Bundy and Ammon Bundy and Ryan and others, they're standing up for what they believe is right, and they've paid the price for doing it. And we're not done yet. I mean, we're just starting, because if we don't push back, we're not going to have a country much longer. Honestly, it's not just being alarmist, but we can see what's happening today. I mean, we're sitting on the precipice of having Nancy Pelosi and company take control of the House of Representatives. And I don't tell people who to vote for because I run a public interest group, although in my personal capacity, I can endorse, and I endorsed President Trump, and I endorsed Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and I will endorse them again, personally. But the reality here is that you can see that we're on the verge of not just this violence in the streets, not just a flood of immigrants from Central America that are intended to skew our electoral system, but we're on the verge of having what is in effect this very evil person, Nancy Pelosi, take control. And once that happens, with her hordes of leftists that know no bounds, we could see that with Judge Kavanaugh in Congress, we're going to be in an impeachment proceeding. We're going to be in a trial in the U.S. Senate. And we need to fight back right now. There's no time to waste. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. Join our Justice League. You are the superheroes, like Sheriff Joe Arpaio. And we ask people to join us, like you, Jason. Join us. You're a superhero, too, because the American people can rise up. It was only a small group of people in the colonial times that waged a successful revolution initially. They brought everybody to the fold against King George III. We can do it again. So, Sheriff, I thank you for your courage. I am so honored to be your friend and your lawyer. And to everybody that listens to this show, you'll hear more from the sheriff in the future.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
We're back with the verdict portion of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Jason Goodman's still on the line, and I want him to tell all of our listeners where they can look at some of these documents that we've obtained so far, and there's just a fraction of what we're going to get of the illegal communications with the media, which we maintain are illegal grand jury leaks. And, of course, once we show that, Mueller will be gone. Okay, everybody will require him to leave. The president will then have cover to fire him. So, Jason, tell us where people can go and look at some of these documents.
The easiest way to find it, Larry, is going to be going to the CrowdsourceTheTruth Twitter page. So you can just go on Twitter and search @CSTheTruth. I've just tweeted out the Trello board that members of our audience have put together, and your listeners can join and participate. Read this Trello board. It makes the information much easier to go through. The giant document dump that they gave you had duplicates and things were out of order. And this is an interactive process. So, members of the crowdsourced community, people that watch Crowdsource the Truth, have gone through and organized it all, linked up the mainstream news articles with the authors in their emails with Peter Carr in the special counsel's office. So if people go on to Twitter and look for @CSTheTruth, you can link to the Trello board and participate and help us, help Freedom Watch get through this information and serve justice.
Well, and Jason's doing a valuable service here, not just to Freedom Watch, but to the entire country, because we need resources at Freedom Watch. We need to grow. We need more lawyers. We need more paralegals. We need more people in the media so we can project more. I have a new book that's called Essays of a Mad Man. If you donate over $250,000, tax deductible, I'll give it to you free. I'll send it to you. We have a radio show. This is our radio show. It goes up on radioamerica.com, their blog, and also freedomwatchusa.org. Share that, because we need to get the word out. We need to be the Paul Revere. We need to be the founding fathers with the printing press that coalesce the colonies, that bring people together. We're Gideon's army. A small group of committed people can win. And that group of people is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the only good thing coming out of all this violence from the left and the hateful people that the left has embedded in Congress, like Nancy Pelosi, like Adam Schiff of West Hollywood, a congressman from West Hollywood, like the rest of these hacks, like Hillary Clinton, like Obama, like Comey, like Mueller, is that it's getting people riled up. It's getting them fired up to the point that they're going to want to join our Justice League. So go to freedomwatchusa.org. We are your Justice Department. We're the only public interest group. We just don't get documents. Okay, we seek to bring about justice. Documents are fine. But you know what? That's not all that we need. We need a trial lawyer like myself of 41 years who knows what he's doing, to go into court, to take other actions, to bring about justice and the rule of law. And we need to do it even outside of the legal system in a peaceful and legal way with citizens, grand juries, and others. We not only need more lawyers, we not only need more paralegals, we not only need more tax-deductible contributions, we need you to join our Justice League, as I've said, because together we can save this country. And I'll tell you what's coming up on the horizon, too, is that the Bundys, who we successfully defended in Nevada, that's where we met Jason the first time at Freedom Watch, and his colleague, Laura Loomer, is that they are not finished yet. Okay, we have a case to have the land declared in Nevada to be owned by the people of the state and also the county, Clark County. We're pushing back with cases against these evil, malicious prosecutors that tried to put these people away for life and indicted peaceful protesters like Lavellian and others, Rick Lavellian and Stephen Stewart, who didn't even do anything. And they're not done with the Bundys yet either. That's up on appeal at the Ninth Circuit. I've got to defend them there. So all of these heroes, all of these superheroes, whether it's Sheriff Arpaio or whether it's the Bundys, and I have a new client, Schaefer Cox, who's in prison until 2033, who also stood up to the federal government, but they set him up and put him away. He's in prison in Terre Haute, Indiana. These people represent the American dream. These people represent why we founded this country. And they didn't harm anybody. But when they raise their head, it's the federal government, frequently, that tries to crush them along with the leftist media. And this government is not the government of the people anymore. It's the government of the establishments of both political parties in Washington, D.C. So therefore, go to freedomwatchusa.org. Join our Justice League. Contribute to our cause. Join us. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, God save America.